Welcome to Attention Retention with Jackie McManus, your source for the latest trends in transportation recruitment and retention.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Attention Retention. I'm your host, Jackie McManus, CEO of KJ Media. We're a recruitment advertising agency specializing in talent attraction, optimizing your hiring processes, and driving efficiency to help grow your workforce in the trucking industry. And on this show, we explore the world of recruitment, retention, and recognition by industry leaders, interviewing them, and we dive into strategies, challenges, and successes of overall transportation workforce management. And this week, I am thrilled to be joined by Cory, Director of Recruiting at Paper Transport, a leading truckload carrier known for its dedicated services, innovative sustainability efforts, and commitment to empowering employees with what drives you. And I'm dying to dive into that, Cory. Cory, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. One thing you mentioned to me that really resonated in our previous conversation was your belief about being authentic self is the biggest and one of the most powerful ways for recruiters and drivers to connect. So that perspective really says a lot about your approach to recruitment and leadership, and excited to dive in more. But before we go into the 3 R's, could you walk us through your journey and talk about your career to where you are today at your current seat at Paper Transport?
I got into transportation right after college. I was always an operator. I did that for a long time. I was an operations manager. I came to PTI about going on 9 years ago. I started here as a driver manager, so I kind of took a step back, started here as a driver manager. Then I was engagement manager and then operations manager for about 6 years. And then I made the switch, to the dark side of recruiting over here.
It really is. Yeah.
Now I'm a director of recruiting over at Paper Transport. I kind of just fell into it. It's not what my degree was for. I think everyone in transportation, or most people in transportation, right? You kind of just fall into it. And then once you do, I don't know, it hooked me a little bit just with, I just like to change every day, right? Like there's always problems, and the ability to solve them, and working with drivers is what I really enjoy.
There are so many different variables that can happen on a given day. And so it's always critical thinking is a big piece of what we do and solving problems. You mentioned to me, you have an active CDL license. Is that right?
I do. I say active. I have the license active. I went to school. I got it. I do not utilize it very often. So I don't want to fake anyone out too much. I'm not pulling trailers or doing any real driving. So
unless maybe Paper needs a couple of drivers. I've heard of those stories from some clients. They still have their CDL and they've jumped in trucks before. So that's something I've always aspired to do myself.
Yeah, it's worth the journey. Honestly, I went to get it just because when I moved to this role, and even just working with the drivers on the day to day, I wanted to understand what it was like. And it's pretty surprising how, you take for granted you drive to work every day on the same roads and stuff like that. And then on the same roads I drive to work in, I got behind a truck and a 53-foot trailer. And it was like, this is a lot different. My anxiety rose. Like, it was a totally new world. And it gave me a really good perspective on what that's like, in general, the stresses of day to day. And then also, we have a program from new grads coming right in here called the Accelerate program. And that gave me a really good perspective on not only is it a new career, so that's all new, but a new job, right? With a new people you're meeting and dealing with. So just the stressors on, and even applying, I applied for Paper Transport and got hired as a driver here just to go through the whole process and see, what it was like.
So you went through the whole driver candidate journey, essentially.
I did.
That's something we actually do that with a lot of our clients on their behalf as a third party. Sometimes there's just little blips in the road. Sometimes it's running as smooth as you want it to be. But that candidate journey is so critical So when we kind of start off with recruitment, drivers do have so many different options. And the candidate journey is something that we often discover there might be some friction. And how do we avoid that friction? Because drivers do have the opportunity to look at, if they're a good, safe driver, the world's kind of their oyster. So, with the current state of the industry, it's always been a competitive industry, but we are losing drivers to other industries themselves. And so that's a big goal of the podcast, is to keep drivers in this industry and share insights for the industry. What have you found in your career wearing couple seats, getting your CDL, applying to paper transport, getting hired, which that's a good sign. What have you found to be more of the effective strategies when you're trying to attract new drivers to your company?
I think it's spreading the resources out and being smart with how you do it. So obviously we use Indeed, Google. Everyone's going to be doing the same couple things. What can you differentiate out by job, by region? So I think it depends on what job it is, where we're hiring out of, what we'll use. But I think it's using job boards. It's use all that stuff right away. Figure out where you get the hires from, where you get the most bang for your buck. Make sure you take good notes and build stats and track everything so you know what to use. And then just making sure you sell your company, right? Because everyone's going to be pretty close when it comes. I mean, companies stand out with pay and benefits, but as long as you're in the top tier with pay and benefits, what are you going to do to stand out? And I think that's kind of where I think, try to separate ourselves with our personality on social media and other stuff like that that's where I think we get our edge sometimes.
It makes sense. It's as an advertising agency, KJ, ourselves, we're all fishing essentially from the same pot, right? There's a couple million drivers out there, a percentage of them just maybe job hoppers, right? And there's certain safety standards based off of insurance that companies can only hire 2 years of experience and certain endorsements in order to really bring them on board and make sure that they are qualified on the back end to actually start moving the freight. But one thing I've really found is that it comes down to building your own network within your trucking company, right? So we're all fishing from the same pot, but what does that experience look like for the driver? I would say pay is something, unless it's radically lower or much higher, which you don't see too much. It's all within a 5 to 10K, depending on the type of position range. It comes down to those initial conversations and the people and learning more about the driver wants to know what's in it for them, not just obviously pay, benefit, home times, all of that is so important, but they also want to know who they're working for. And they want to understand what their potential career path is. One thing you mentioned that was interesting is KPIs. We love that word over here. Big data nerds. And that's something, it goes overlooked, especially for maybe the small to medium sized fleets, but it's something that it's critical because, again, you can't have your eggs all in one basket. What KPIs would you say are most important for you when you're looking at your ad dollars right now?
I mean, I think everyone's got the normal ones, the cost per hire, cost per lead. I think that stuff's all relative to what jobs you have open, to what region, how many recruiters, another thing no one talks about, right, is how full are you, right? If you're operating at over 99% full, are those stats really relevant? Or are you banking on new business coming? And then when you put your budget up for the month, so there's so many things that go into those stats. But I mean, honestly, when we're building a marketing budget and stuff like that, it's, hey, what jobs do I think are going to be open based on turnover from the last year for that division? So I'll take turnover. How many drivers are in there? How many hires do I think I need for each role? How do I hire for them? How much does it usually cost for that role? And I'll come up with a marketing budget from that. That's usually how I would do it. And then, I work really closely with our sales team to see what's in the, how close to things coming to the end of the pipeline and when are we going to have to open new jobs for new business that's coming on. So that's part of it too. And a lot of that is unknown, right? When you're getting a new dedicated account, like, hey, we got to hire 12 drivers. We're going to have to do it in 4 weeks. How much do I think it's going to cost to spend? You're doing an educated guess with that, but our key KPIs, come back to your main question, is really cost per hire, how many hires we're going to get based on turnover, that we're going to need based on turnover and growth, and then we figure out our budget from there.
I think that's an important element of building a successful recruiting budget. For example, a client that we were working with needed 10 drivers. And I said, okay, well, we can build a recruitment calculator out and input the metrics and data depending on when the new business is going to come in. And that's always the chicken or the egg, right? How quickly are these, contracts are going to sign, and when do you need to staff up? So looking at their overall calculator, then I said, well, what's your turnover rate? And they were like, well, it's 90%. He said, well, we're not really hiring for 10 drivers, right? And we inputted the numbers in the calculator, and the math was, I think it was 18 drivers. And they're like, well, they're still here. And I said, well, the turnover, so you really want to, hedge your bets around how do you bring new drivers in? Of course, you want to retain them, but if your fleet consistently has that turnover, you're going to need a higher volume of candidates in. So looking at that full picture, and I appreciate you giving that the context, because it is different for everyone, but looking at it on a holistic view, it gives you a real educated decision and information to make an educated decision.
For sure.
One challenge I often hear from recruiters, they're under pressure for hitting certain KPIs and their own hiring metrics. I know myself, I was under that gun for a while when I started my career in the industry. And, from where you sit, how do you balance that pressure with your team of recruiters, with also operations, with also sales, right? You're kind of the hub of all the information. How do you balance that while still maintaining your hiring numbers?
When you hire recruiters, right, or you put people on your team, you want these really ambitious people that are competitive, that are money driven. And then, when you get really full and all of a sudden the goals change, and instead of trying to hire 10 drivers a month, you're trying to have them hire 4 drivers a month, but we want the highest quality, and things change really fast. And the needs change, right? Like, we could get a sales opportunity. So, like you said, working with operations when we are getting full, to what we might do sometimes is we don't make job offers all the time. I did listen to your last podcast. I know they do operation interviews too. That is something we do too. So we work with operations really closely on retention when they have openings, and when things are tight and they have a really good fleet with good retention, we might send a couple drivers over and let them interview as well. And we're upfront about this. So it's not like this is a surprise to the candidate, right? We're upfront. Like, part of this process is we're going to send you over to operations. You're competing against another candidate. And that might hurt us sometimes because drivers might not like to hear that, but we're upfront about it. And we do want the best people on our team. So we do let operations, they are the hiring manager essentially that will be working with the drivers. So they do get a say in that process a lot of times, especially when we're full. So we do work pretty closely with them on that, and hey, we really like this driver. This is why, extend an offer to them, and we'll do that when we're getting full. As far as working with sales goes, I mean, we're up to date with everything. I work a lot. We have a pricing team here, and when they price stuff out, I help give input on driver wages. So we're usually very aligned on the same page. And I can usually tell them up front if they price things out, how we have a price, like I know when we should be able to hire. Now, does that always happen?
Right.
No, but there's a lot of pressure, and we do specify, we're really good in the dedicated freight, but we do have one-way drivers that we use to support dedicated. So if we don't get hiring up, we do move one-way drivers in to help with our dedicated startups as well.
Yeah, in a way, it's a balancing act. It's a juggling act. With us, we'll have a client meeting, for example, and they need those 12 drivers, and an hour after they meet with operations and they need 22. 2 days later, they'll have that turnover. So I think that the goal is always to be nimble, to be flexible, and be as upfront with drivers. I really like that approach that your team takes, and letting the driver know that they're interviewing for this position and they are competing for the position. If you think about it, you, myself, any other leader in the space, if we were applying to a new company, I'm pretty sure we'd be competing with other folks. So you also bring a different caliber in, I believe, that way by letting them know there's other drivers that want this opportunity. I think there's like a soft way that really resonates with a new driver, new to your company, in a way that it makes them a little bit more competitive and to figure out if they really want it.
Right. And I mean, that's for some of our more competitive roles, right? So
right.
Just to be clear, like we have a lot of roles where that's not the case, but we do have some really good jobs with dedicated accounts that, that the pay is really high, and that is the case. So we just try to build, hire the best available person for that role.
Yep. That makes sense. Social media has been such a powerful tool in every aspect of recruiting. I know when I started KJ 12 years ago and started talking about Facebook, a lot of question marks and people looking at me like, my granddaughter's on that, my son's on that, I'm not on Facebook. And now, even to date, it's 2.3 million drivers are on Facebook. I'm sure there's variance in there, but it's incredible to see how much that has grown. And your team does an incredible job at acknowledging drivers, current drivers, talking about openings, talking about all the good work that the team is doing, but also it's opportunity to target passive candidates, right? So again, with that media mix, looking at active candidates versus passive candidates. When would you say, your company as a whole really looked at Facebook and said, hey, we need to go all in on this?
It was probably about 2 years ago when I took this role, and I just thought, hey, this is what we need to do. We were doing some of it. I'm not sure how much, to be honest. I don't think very much, but we started advertising on Facebook almost immediately. We continued to do that. I think it's more, I like Facebook. Yeah, I like posting jobs on there, right? When you really need to. But I don't want that to be like, when people go to our page, I don't want them to see a bunch of job ads. I want them to look at our page and be like, these guys are funny.
Yep.
It looks like a fun place, right? Like, I do think we're pretty funny on there. If you look at some of our reels,
it's caught my eye.
We want to get everyone involved, because it's not just the drivers you're advertising to, right? It's kids, it's moms, it's wives, it's significant others. Like, so we're on TikTok. We try to be funny and trendy. I'll be honest, I'm not the best, but we have a really good team. I have a really good marketing specialist, Maddie, I work with, and
go Maddie, go.
Some interns on the team
that
tell me what's trending, and I'll be honest, I don't even understand some of the stuff they tell me is trending. We film a video and it gets 10,000 views, and it's like, good work. But I think it's just important to stay. That's where you can showcase your personality as a company, who you are, right? Which I think is important to get out there. And then with that funny and trendy stuff is when you put in the substance as well, right? So you have that other stuff, and then we put in our substance where, hey, this is what we can really do for you. And I think we do a really good job of that on YouTube with a lot of our longer videos. We have some really fun stuff, a backing challenge where we take office employees and make them try to back a trailer between two trailers.
It's a riot. I was watching some prepping for this podcast. It's engaging. It's simple as that. It's so engaging.
What drivers like to see too is us, how we relate, and like the office trying to understand what the drivers go through.
Yeah.
So I think that part's funny, how nervous everyone gets to try to do it, even though we're in a parking lot and we're going to be instructed. But also highlights our accelerator program, right? Because Lee, that's in a lot of the videos, is our lead instructor in the yard most of the time. And it shows that he can just take anyone off the street and get them to do it. And that's what we put our new grads through when they come. He just does such a good job. So it really highlights that as well.
Could you talk to the audience more and me about the accelerator program and what that entails and what that looks like for a new driver?
So our accelerator program targets new Class A CDL graduates. So we'll take drivers out of school. They come in the office here for orientation in Green Bay for 4 days. It's Tuesday through Friday. We pay them. We pay for travel, hotel. We buy lunch.
I do.
And
I'm not
then we're in the
surprised.
office. It's a lot of mixture between the office and the like our parking lot here. So we'll practice a lot of 45-degree backing, just driving around in the classroom stuff. And then weeks 2 and 3 is we will pair you with a certified trainer with us. You will be driving. They will be sitting passenger seat. So they're not in the back. They're not sleeping or anything like that. They're sitting, shotgun with you. When you're backing up, they're getting out to help you and direct you. But on a fleet that you're hired for, typically, if we can. It doesn't always work out that perfect, but majority of the time it really does. So if you're hired for a certain role in a certain area, we try to get you a trainer on that same role in that same area. And you do that for 2 weeks. And then we'll have a road test evaluation at the end of that to make sure you're ready to go on your own.
And I have to imagine there's a bond that happens between the trainer and the new driver. Either, it was intentional or unintentional. There's spending 2 weeks with someone out on the road. That develops a bond to some degree where, I have to imagine you probably have some stories of drivers staying friends after that, or, contacting each other and talking all the good and the bad, right? And
a lot of them, a lot of them do. They're friends, and a lot of them, I would say almost half of our trainers now started in our Accelerate program and got years of experience, and then are now our certified trainers.
That's incredible.
It's a really great program, and they know what it was like to come through, and so it gives them really good perspective when they become a certified trainer with us as well. But yeah, that relationship can be really good. And, there's a lot of things you can call your driver manager for, your planner, anybody here in recruiting, right? And we can help you. But you call us at 4 p.m. on a Monday and ask where the best places to get a parking spot. Right. That's probably not us, right? I mean, we'll figure something out for you.
Of course.
But that's where you got, like, the trainer you just worked with that runs the same route. Like, hey, we're working at park. I got X amount of hours left. This is what's going on. Like, that's where they get a lot of help from. So they do call the trainers a lot after they're done with school, even, or through the program.
Having that kind of sisterhood, brotherhood, friendship, it has to lead. I mean, the fact that 50% of the new grads became trainers themselves says a lot about that program. And then typically what we find from new drivers is that they feel a little alone. They feel stranded, especially if their family didn't grow up in the industry and they, took a loan out or went through a big school and got it paid for through a trucking company. They just don't really realize what it entails, like the day in the life. Even if you're watching a YouTube video, there's nothing like actually going out there and having someone to speak to and have a sounding board to see, exactly making sure it's the right fit for you. Retention is a two-way relationship. And in a form, I'm kind of segueing there because I feel like that relationship between the driver and the student is a retention aspect. And really, I've seen so many companies lose drivers within the first 38, 60 days of being hired. And I think it's that communication breakdown, maybe not properly onboarding the driver. Can you walk me through, you mentioned there's an assessment process that your company does, and I thought it was fascinating. And can you walk us through the assessment process that you do with drivers?
But basically, they're given a score based on that assessment. We won't move forward unless they have a certain score. And, since we implemented that, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago now, our retention has improved pretty drastically, especially with the 0 to 90-day turnover for new drivers. So
I bet.
We still run that. We do that for every job still.
Is that right?
It is a commitment up front for the application process, right? You're asking a driver to do, when everyone's trying to make everything way easier, we're asking for another 10 minutes to do a 100-question assessment. It's not an easy ask. It doesn't always get complete, but we do believe in it, and I think it does help us long-term with our retention and bringing the right people on for a good fit for both ways.
I mean, taking that extra step, as difficult as it is to find drivers out there, to make sure it's a good fit is something that is so important, because in the long run, it helps with retention. It's not just recruiting and getting new drivers in. It's how do you keep them? How do you make sure that they actually are the personality type or it's a good fit for both parties. Is it more like personality type questionnaires, or what type of questions are you asking in this? We won't go one by one, but just general overview.
It gives you a couple choices and they're all very similar, and it's just how you pick out the answers to kind of, it kind of goes through like safety, customer service. There's an algorithm it uses to balance all those things.
I haven't seen many companies use it. The companies that are, you do see a stronger retention overall, and less turnover, which is always the name of the game. In our industry, turnover has always been historically, especially depending on the vertical, high, right? I mean, there's no way to slice or dice it, put lipstick on a pig and call it pretty. I know when I joined the industry, it was 100%. It's, for the OTR truckload, you're still seeing that 90 to 100%. What do you think the reason is for all this turnover and friction in our industry, from driver getting hired to, leaving a company?
Transportation's just tough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the margins are really small. And when the margins are small, everyone's fighting for everything. And I think that we always put this like driver's job hop, and that's like kind of the stigma, right? Is
right.
Driver's job hop and recruiters bait and switch and lie sometimes. And driving's a hard job and a hard career, right? Because
it is,
like, just my career, for example, like I've moved up in roles multiple times, right? And if I was to take a role and my only way to get really a pay increase, like every year I could get a 0.5 cent raise or a cent raise, but I could switch to another company and make an extra $5,000 more a year. I'm sorry, but if I'm supporting my family, I'm probably doing that. So my biggest answer to that is just the way that everything's built in the transportation industry, and there's no easy answer to fix that, right? But I believe turnover is high because drivers are just looking for, and for a long time, besides just that pay raise to support their family, we weren't very accommodating for home time or other perks, right?
Right.
So I think just depending on the driver's situation, right? You might start out over the road and then they might want to switch to something home daily because now they have a family. Or they might need to just make more money. So they're just taking, and it sounds so bad. And all of us frown on it when we look at an app with, they've had 6 jobs in the last 4 years. Well, if each job got them more money, can you really blame them? For the most part,
no,
right?
And he has 3 kids at home, right?
Right.
Married, COVID onwards, right? So we're at almost 5 years. Companies, instead of just focusing on recruiting, have taken that extra step and now focusing on retention. It's not just getting drivers in the door. It's like, how do we keep them? What are we looking for? What's that? I always talk about the ideal candidate profile. What does that ideal driver look like? Where do they live? What's their personality trait? What do they do? Are they, just starting out in their career, or are they retirees and husband and wife? They're empty nesters. They want to be team drivers, right? There's so many different types of ways to really nail down that ideal candidate. Not that every driver is going to be that, but at least you have a framework to work off of, so that when you're interviewing them, you're, engaging with them and talking about the opportunities you have and interviewing, you get a good idea of this person would be a really great fit, or maybe not right now, need to move on. They could come join, but maybe they would leave, right? So the ideal candidate is something I always push for, because every driver is different, every circumstance is different. And then with trucking companies, every load is different, right? So, figuring out, but there are drivers out there that are going to meet what you're looking for. And so I always say, the 100% turnover, there's always a way, just small tweaks around small tweaks. Doesn't have to be revolutionary or, cost money. It could be really even as important as thanking a driver or recognizing these drivers and kind of going into recognition. That's a big piece under the retention umbrella, is how do we recognize drivers? And again, not spending so much money. I often find like companies, maybe that mid-sized fleet, margins are very thin in our industry. And they'll say, well, we don't have money to thank drivers, with monetary type bonuses or some companies give away like a car, or there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And I would say the power of thank you. The power of thanking a driver for working for you, or if they do a good job, or even if it goes, don't let that go unnoticed. I think the power of a thank you goes a really long way. Not that everyone needs a trophy by any means, but there's ways to recognize drivers outside of just giving those monetary bonuses. While those are important, 1,000%, shifting that outlook from that recruiting advertising maybe into recognizing the drivers so that they stay.
Our biggest thing too is I think we hire the right people for driver managers, planners. Like, I think we do a really good job of that. Like when we're going through that process is like, hey, is this a good person? First off, do they meet our values? Are they qualified? But then it's, do I like talking to them, right? Are our drivers going to like having a conversation with them? And I think once you hire that right person, they're going to do those small things every day, the thank yous, right? And it goes a long way. Like a driver goes and moves an empty trailer so somebody else can get loaded the next day, and then you really make it a big deal. Like, hey, you went out of your way. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Sometimes we send cards, thank you cards, a small gift card or something like that.
I love a thank you card. It's so nostalgic in a way.
Honestly, and it sounds so dumb too, but these guys have long days, and if you send that stuff home too, so their significant other will see that.
Right.
That makes a big deal too, because, it shows them that we appreciate them too, even because we're taking a lot of their home time away, right? We're paying them, but
still
they're gone for anywhere from 8 to 14 hours a day or a week at a time, right? So just those little things really make a big deal to the driver and their families. So no, we really do make a big deal of that as well.
I really liked what you said earlier when we were talking about social media, and you mentioned it's about the driver always, and of course, but it's also about their families. That's so important, especially if the job is not home daily or, those responsibilities, and take that extra step to really connect with not only them, but then also their families. It goes a really, really long way. And it's some of those softer qualities, but I've seen companies that have done that well, similar to what you guys are doing. And that's where drivers stay, even if they had a bad week. If they go home and they talk to their husband, wife, and that person, their significant other, is connected in some way or remembers that thank you card, they might motivate them a little bit more and give them the positive versus, just go find someone else, find another job. There's another million jobs out there. So right. I think that it's more of a holistic and building that community with not just a driver, but families. Now, talk to me about, I've been a fan of Paper Transport in your social media, and shout out, is it Maddie? Shout out to Maddie. Big fan of what you guys do out there. Talk to me about the type of positions that you guys are hiring for. We have a driver community of 250,000 drivers that follow us and listen to this show, and love to learn more about the positions that you guys have, what you're hiring for. And in the link below, we will have a link to the Paper Transport website where you can learn more and apply to talk to them recruiters. But Cory, tell me more about the type of drivers that you're hiring.
We have pretty much any role you would want. This depends on the region you live in, but we have spotting roles. We have home daily spotting, 4 on 4 off, Monday through Friday, first shift, second shift. We have shuttle jobs. First shift, second shift, Monday through Friday, 4 on 4 off. We have new dedicated accounts popping up all over the country right now. That's
fantastic. We all love dedicated.
Yeah, that's our big thing. That's honestly, that's what we're known for. We've been around for actually our 35th anniversary was last month.
Congratulations. Wow.
And we were started as a dedicated carrier, and we still haul for the same company that we started dedicated with 35 years ago.
That's incredible.
So that's really where we're trying to grow, because I think that's our specialty. It's what we do really well, and it gives really good job opportunities for drivers. A lot of it's home daily, good hourly pay jobs. So that is really what we're striving to get and grow with. But we have over the road opportunities as well. kind of through the Midwest mostly. We also have a South East division. We have an office in Jacksonville where we hire drivers that are over the road as well. So really a lot of good opportunities. Anything you're kind of interested in, we probably have, and we do hire new Class A CDL graduates.
Fantastic. Yes. So for all the drivers out there that are tuning in, again, please go to the show notes. You'll see a link to their website. We'll learn more about them. We'll also put in a link to the careers page as well. Click on that and learn more about what the team is doing at Paper Transit and see if it's a good fit. I think one thing I've learned from our conversation today is it's the culture that your team has. It bleeds through, and it's so much so that I've been a fan of all the work you've been doing on the outside that I wanted to bring you in to share about this. And it really starts right in the beginning with the assessment and making sure that it's a good fit for both parties. I think that is something that a lot of companies are going to strive to do, over the next couple of years. So I do have one more question for you. As we're wrapping up, I'd love to know, what would you say is the most kind of important lesson you've learned as it relates to recruiting, retention, recognition overall in the last couple of years that you've been sitting where you're sitting?
We started out, you talked about being your authentic self. I'm going to go back to that a little bit.
I love that.
I came over I was an operator. I was in operations forever. And the first thing I said is, I'm not going to be a really good recruiter. I'm way too blunt. I'm just going to paint it like it is. And I think what I've learned is that drivers especially really appreciate that, but so does everyone else, right? Maybe not the bluntness all the time, but being your authentic self, being who you are, being true, and just being upfront and honest with the jobs that you're selling, with what it's like to work here. I think that has just gotten us a long way as a company, and it's gotten me a long way, in my career, especially so far as a recruiter. I go to schools and I kind of just say that, and then we just have a conversation almost like we're having now. And it works pretty well. So I'd just say be true, right? Because drivers can smell BS a mile away. So don't try to sell to them.
Yep. They are the number one, they could smell that out in a heartbeat. Be true, be authentic, taking recruiting, retention, recognition in the people business that we're in a challenging industry that we're in that's constantly evolving. Be true and make those connections. I always say that trucking is 2 degrees transportation separation. We all somehow know each other in some shape or form, especially if we've been bit by the bug. And that goes the same with drivers. And even if the company is not a right fit for them, maybe at that time, there's friends, there's families. And so being true, being honest, is definitely key. Well, Cory, thank you so much for joining our podcast today. It was fantastic to speak with you and learn more about what you guys are doing over there. And thank you so much to all of our listeners for tuning in. Remember, the road to success begins with effective recruitment, thoughtful retention, and genuine recognition. Feel free to share this knowledge with your peers and industry colleagues. Your sharing can make a difference, and together we can empower the industry to thrive. Until next time, thank you so much, Cory.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.